I recently read the book Ultralearning by author Scott Young. In 2013, author Scott Young wanted to learn Spanish, but instead of enrolling in a Spanish course, Scott and a friend went to Spain with a constraint: no English for 3 months. No phone calls back home in English, and not a word of English between the two of them, just Spanish. Scott struggled to get by, but eventually he could hold a conversation in Spanish. But he didn't stop there. Scott and his friend performed the same 3-month no English project 3 more times in 3 different countries, learning 3 new languages. 12 months after landing in Spain, Scott and his friend could have conversations between themselves in Spanish, Portuguese, Mandarin Chinese, and Korean. Scott's language learning project falls into a category that Scott has termed ultralearning. Ultralearning is different than most learning in 2 specific ways. It's self-directed and intense. You see, standard learning in the classroom or online is often led by one teacher with a one-size-fits-all syllabus, and a lot of what's taught isn't useful for each student and doesn't transfer to the real world. I took 4 years of engineering school in a standard learning environment and ended up using maybe 5% of what I learned as an engineer. Most of what I learned was theory for a PhD student. But this would never happen after an ultralearning project, because on an ultralearning project, students take control. They don't simply listen to a teacher. They gather lessons, techniques, and strategies from multiple teachers and create their own learning path that allows them to develop the knowledge and skills they'll actually use in the real world. With an ultralearning project, you don't dip your toes in. You fully immerse yourself by establishing an aggressive learning schedule. For example, one of Scott's fans started a public speaking ultralearning project by signing up for a speech contest, which required him to complete 6 speeches in 6 days to qualify for the contest. Such an aggressive schedule forced him to get fully immersed in the world of public speaking and rapidly develop new public speaking skills. Whatever skill you want to acquire, may that be public speaking, graphic design, programming, or copywriting, you can accelerate your learning by turning it into an ultralearning project. Regardless of what skill you target during your ultralearning project, you'll probably be amazed at your new abilities at the end of the project. To start any ultralearning project, you'll need to focus on and optimize the following 3 ultralearning components. Number 1, make a meta-learning map. Number 2, design practice drills. And number 3, overlearn. First, make a meta-learning map. When Scott's friend Vatsal graduated with an architectural degree, he assumed that his schooling would set him up for a nice job. But after he graduated, he quickly learned that employers didn't want someone who knew a lot of theory. They wanted someone with actual experience with building codes and architectural software. After months of looking for a job and failing, Vatsal took matters into his own hands. First, he took a low-paying, low-skilled job in a print shop, printing large blueprints for architectural firms to study architectural drawings and get exposed to how architects actually work. He talked to the architects who walked in the shop to understand what software they used. After learning that the architects used a software program called Revit, he bought the program and installed it on his personal computer. Then Vatsal proceeded to teach himself the software skills he needed to replicate the drawings he saw in the print shop. After months of immersing himself in architectural drawings and the latest architectural software, Vatsal submitted a portfolio of drawings to 2 firms that had once rejected him. A week later, he had 2 job offers. Like Vatsal, you need to take the learning process in your own hands. You can't trust a school or one mentor to teach you exactly what you need to know. Spend up to 10% of your allotted learning time understanding the components of the skill you want to learn by doing Google searches, skimming books, and reaching out to multiple experts to answer the following question. If I want to do blank, what concepts do I need to understand? What facts do I need to memorize? And what procedures do I need to practice? The first part requires you to determine what exactly you want to be able to do at the end of your ultralearning project. If you want to learn Mandarin, get specific on exactly what you want to do with Mandarin. If your goal is just to have a conversation in Mandarin, then you don't need to spend time memorizing all the Mandarin characters. Once you've specified exactly what you want to do with a skill, take out a piece of paper and draw 3 columns. At the top of column 1, write concepts I need to understand. In Vatsal's case, he needed to understand what every symbol on those architectural drawings meant and why they were used. In the second column, write what facts do I need to memorize. Vatsal needed to memorize the latest architectural building codes. When Scott landed in Spain, he needed to memorize a list of Spanish verbs, nouns, and conjugations just to get started. And in the last column, write what procedures/movements do I need to practice. Vetzel needed to practice setting up drawings in Revit and doing a thorough review of every drawing he created. When Scott went to China, he needed to practice Mandarin tones to hold a conversation. Once you've created a list of things you need to understand, memorize, and practice, identify a select few items on your list that you think will be critical to your success and challenging to learn. Once you've identified these items, design drills for each of those items. American founding father Ben Franklin was a great writer. His writing was so good that the other founding fathers asked him to edit the Declaration of Independence. Franklin became such a good writer because he designed specific writing drills for himself. Franklin realized that other writers that he admired used a wider array of words and were able to craft more compelling arguments than he could. So Franklin developed an exercise to strengthen each of those subskills. The first exercise involved taking a piece of prose he had written and seeing how many words he could replace with synonyms while still maintaining the rhyme of the prose. The second exercise involved reading articles in his favorite magazine, The Spectator, and writing notes next to them. Then days later, he would try to reconstruct the main argument from each article from memory. After finishing his version, he would go back to The Spectator and discover the faults he had made. Like Franklin, you can take the items that you want to understand, memorize, and ingrain, and design practice drills for them. When author Scott Young was learning how to draw portraits, a bit of online research revealed that accurately getting the size and placement of facial features would be challenging but essential to his success. So Scott designed a practice drill to hone in on this drawing subskill. Scott reserved time each day to rapidly produce sketches of eyes, noses, and mouths, and then overlaid them to reference photos. In the book he says, that way I could quickly diagnose what kind of errors I was making without having to guess. You can think of designing practice drills like discovering or developing exercises to isolate a key muscle, like a bodybuilder would do dips to target the development of his triceps. After you've designed a handful of drills, commit to overlearning. You can think of overlearning like taking grade 11 and grade 12 math to prepare for a grade 11 math exam, or taking Psychology 101 and 102 to prepare for a 101 exam. The idea is to go beyond the requirements of what you're trying to learn, so that what you're learning is more likely to stick. A study found that students who take a calculus class immediately after an algebra class recall significantly more algebra than the students who just took the algebra class, even if those algebra-only students got better grades. Scott's friend, who embarked on that public speaking ultralearning project, embraced overlearning by delivering the speech for an upcoming speech contest in front of a group of 7th graders first. 7th graders have much shorter attention spans and are much worse at hiding their boredom. So Scott's friend knew that if he could keep 7th graders engaged, then keeping the audience at the speech contest engaged would be a walk in the park. By going beyond the requirements of his target performance, he nailed his target performance. To embrace overlearning in your next ultralearning project, just ask yourself, what's my target performance and what's the next level? Expose yourself to next level material, like those kids who took calculus, or commit to an even harder performance than the one you're training for, like Scott's friend did with the 7th graders. In the end, if you want to accelerate the development of a skill, to advance your career, or simply for the joy of learning, start your next learning project by making a meta-learning map and outlining exactly what you need to understand, memorize, and practice to achieve success. No more or no less. Then, design practice drills to ingrain challenging but essential concepts, facts, and procedures. And lastly, overlearn by practicing at a higher level, by exceeding the requirements of your target performance. That was the core message that I gathered from Ultralearning by Scott Young. This book is packed with learning principles. I highly recommend it to anyone who wants to speed up the development of a skill. If you would like a one-page PDF summary of insights that I gathered from this book, just click the link below and I'd be happy to email it to you. If you already subscribe to the free Productivity Game email newsletter, this PDF is sitting in your inbox. If you like this video, please share it. And as always, thanks for watching and have yourself a productive week.